The yacht rocked gently against the dark water, but inside, everything was chaos. Jack Abbott stood near the edge of the bed, his face pale, his shirt half-buttoned, his hands trembling slightly as he tried to hold onto some version of control that had already slipped away. Diane Jenkins Abbott stood across from him, her suitcase open, her heart already halfway out the door. "I know how this looks," Jack said, his voice tight, desperate, "but you have to believe me, I didn't choose this." Diane let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Didn't choose this? You were in bed with Patty, Jack, not kidnapped, not tied up, not fighting for your life, you were in bed." Jack dragged a hand through his hair. "I was drugged, I swear to you, something was in my system, I couldn't think clearly, everything felt distorted, like I wasn't in control." "What, you think saying I was high makes this better?" Diane snapped. "You're not a teenager at a rave, you're a grown man who knows exactly what Patty is capable of." Jack stepped closer, lowering his voice. "It wasn't just being high, it felt like euphoria, like nothing mattered. I think it was ecstasy or something like that." Diane's eyes hardened. "Ecstasy doesn't make you forget who you are, it doesn't erase your judgment completely. You still make choices, Jack." Jack froze, that hit harder than the slap she'd given him minutes earlier. "I didn't choose her," he insisted. "Victor set this up, he drugged me, he brought Patty there." Diane shook her head slowly, like she was watching something break that couldn't be fixed. "Even if that's true, you still crossed a line." Behind them, Patty Williams stormed out of the room, furious and humiliated. "This is ridiculous," Patty shouted as she marched down the hallway. "He crawled into bed with me and now suddenly it's all my fault, typical." She found Kyle Abbott on deck, packing anxiously. "Your father is unbelievable," Patty snapped. "He's blaming drugs like he has no responsibility at all." Kyle rubbed his face, exhausted. "This is a mess, all of it." "Well, I'm done being the villain here," Patty huffed. "You can all pretend I forced him, but you know that's not true." Kyle sighed, choosing his words carefully. "Look, whatever happened, we can't just leave him here, we need to get him home." Patty scoffed but said nothing more, turning away. Back inside, Billy Abbott cornered Jack, his expression sharp and unforgiving. "You're telling me you were drugged?" Billy asked. "I know I was," Jack replied firmly, "and I know who did it." Billy's eyes narrowed. "Victor." Jack nodded slowly. "This has his fingerprints all over it." Billy exhaled through his nose, already thinking ahead. "Then we deal with Victor, but first we deal with the mess you're standing in." The ride home was painfully silent. The car moved through the dark roads, but no one spoke. Diane stared out the window, her reflection cold and distant. Kyle kept his eyes forward. Billy checked his phone but wasn't really reading anything. Jack sat still, feeling every second stretch into something unbearable. By the time they reached the Abbott house, the damage felt permanent. Inside, Jack went straight to the dining room and poured himself a drink. His hand wasn't steady. The glass clinked softly against the bottle. Billy stepped in behind him. "You going to drown yourself in that?" Jack didn't look up, just trying to quiet my mind. Billy leaned against the doorway. "You should be trying to fix your marriage." Jack swallowed hard. "I don't know if I can." Billy softened slightly. "You've survived worse." Jack gave a bitter smile. "Have I?" There was a pause. "I love you, you know that," Billy added quietly, "but you screwed up badly." Jack nodded, accepting it. Billy left him alone. Moments later, Kyle entered and took a seat across from his father. "We need to talk," Kyle said. Jack sighed. "I figured." Kyle leaned forward. "I want the truth, no excuses, no half-stories." Jack met his eyes. "I was set up." Kyle studied him carefully. "Then you better prove it." Meanwhile, Diane stood at the front door, her suitcase beside her. She looked around the house, taking in everything she had fought so hard to rebuild. Every memory, every fragile piece of trust, it all felt shattered now. Her eyes filled, but she refused to let the tears fall. Without another word, she opened the door and walked out. At the Newman ranch, things weren't much better. Victor Newman stood firm, his expression unyielding, while Nikki Newman faced him with disbelief. "You crossed a line," Nikki said. "You used Jack to prove a point." Victor's voice was cold. "You seem more concerned about Jack than your own husband." "That's not true," Nikki shot back, "but what you did was wrong." Victor stepped closer. "You chose him over me." Nikki shook her head. "No, I chose what's right." Victor's patience snapped. Then maybe you should leave." The words hung in the air. Nikki blinked, stunned. You're kicking me out. Victor didn't flinch. If you can't stand by me, you don't belong here. Nikki's voice trembled. This is the home you gave me. Then consider the gift revoked. That was it. Nikki turned heartbroken and walked out. Later at the GCAC, Phyllis Summers argued with Kane Ashby. I'm done helping you, Phyllis said. Whatever mess you're in, you fix it yourself. Kane frowned. You don't even know what's at stake. Phyllis rolled her eyes. I know enough to walk away. Just then she spotted Nikki entering, clearly shaken. Let me guess, Phyllis said. Victor finally pushed too far. Nikki didn't deny it. Across town, Victoria Newman sat with Nate Hastings at the coffee house. We move forward with Milan, Victoria said. Nate frowned. What about Lily and the twins? Victoria's tone was too calm. It'll all be resolved soon. Nate studied her. You know something. Victoria forced a small smile. I'm just being optimistic. Nate didn't buy it. Back at the ranch, Phyllis arrived after Victor summoned her. I want the deal, Victor said, Chancellor for Jack. Phyllis crossed her arms. You wanted more before. What changed? Victor didn't answer directly. Take the deal. Phyllis hesitated, then gave in. Oh, fine. Victor immediately sent instructions to his lawyers. Phyllis smirked. I'm not leaving until I know Jack is safe. Victor nodded. He is. Phyllis smiled, thinking she had won. What she didn't know was that Jack had already been free. And Victor had just played her perfectly. The Abbott house felt colder than it ever had before. Jack sat alone long after Kyle left him at the table. The untouched drink in front of him had gone warm, just like everything else in his life. Silence pressed in from all sides, heavy and suffocating. Upstairs, Diane paused in the hallway with her suitcase still in hand. She hadn't gone far. Not yet. Her fingers tightened around the handle as memories flooded in, every moment she had fought for this life replaying in cruel contrast to what she had just witnessed. Jack's voice echoed in her mind. I was drugged. She wanted to believe him. That was the worst part. Downstairs, the sound of glass shattering broke the silence. Jack had thrown his drink across the room, the crash sharp and violent. He stood there breathing hard, his composure finally cracking. Victor, he muttered under his breath, you don't get to win this. Upstairs, Diane closed her eyes. Then slowly, she turned away. This time, she kept walking. The front door opened again. And this time, it stayed closed behind her. At the Newman ranch, Victor stood alone in his study, staring out at the dark horizon like a king who had just sacrificed everything to win a war no one else understood. But even kings feel the silence. Claire entered cautiously, her expression soft but concerned. Grandpa, this isn't like you. Victor didn't turn. Everything I do is exactly like me. Claire hesitated. You pushed her too far. Victor's jaw tightened. Your grandmother made her choice. She chose not to support something wrong, Claire replied gently. Victor finally turned, his eyes sharp. You think I'm wrong. Claire didn't flinch. I think you're alone. That landed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. Victor said nothing as Claire quietly left him there. At the GCAC, Nikki sat with a drink she barely touched, her reflection staring back at her from the glass. Phyllis slid into the seat across from her, a satisfied smirk on her face. Well, Phyllis said, Victor just signed his own defeat. Nikki gave her a tired look. You really believe that? Phyllis leaned in. I didn't just play his game, I beat him. Nikki shook her head slowly. Victor never loses without a backup plan. Phyllis waved it off, not this time. Across the room, Kane watched them both, tension written all over him. Moments later, Nate joined him. She knows something, Nate said quietly, glancing toward where Victoria had been earlier. Kane clenched his jaw, then she's part of it. Nate exhaled. Victor is behind Lily and the twins, I'm sure of it. Kane's voice dropped, then I started something I can't control. Back at the coffee house, Victoria sat alone now, her calm exterior finally slipping. Her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. Everything is in motion. Victoria's fingers hovered over the screen. Her expression hardened just slightly, then she locked the phone and stood up. Whatever she knew, she wasn't ready to say it out loud. At the Abbott house, Billy returned to find Jack still standing in the dining room, staring at nothing. "You look worse," Billy said bluntly. Jack let out a dry laugh. "That's impressive, considering how bad things already were." Billy stepped closer, Diane left. Jack didn't react at first. Then it hit. He closed his eyes, the weight of it crushing down. "I was trying to explain." "Too late," Billy cut in. "You don't get unlimited chances." Jack's voice dropped. "I didn't do this." Billy studied him, then prove it. Jack looked up, something shifting behind his eyes. "I will." Meanwhile, Phyllis arrived back at the ranch, expecting victory. Instead, she found Victor exactly as she left him, calm, controlled, and completely unbothered. "You're still here?" Victor asked. Phyllis smirked. "I just wanted to see your face when you realize you lost." Victor's lips curved slightly. "Lost." Phyllis frowned. "You gave up, Chancellor, you caved." Victor stepped closer, his voice low. "Tell me something, Phyllis, when did Jack get released?" She blinked. "After I agreed to the deal." Victor's smile deepened. "No." The room went still. Phyllis's confidence cracked instantly. "What are you talking about?" Victor leaned in just enough to make it hurt. Jack was already free. Silence. Cold, brutal silence. Phyllis's face drained of color as the realization hit her like a freight train. "Oh, you used me," she whispered. Victor straightened his jacket. "You used yourself." Phyllis's hands trembled. "I made that deal for nothing." Victor's voice was almost bored now, "for less than nothing." Her breath hitched. All that confidence, all that smug satisfaction gone. Replaced by fury. "You think this is over?" Phyllis snapped. Victor met her gaze without blinking. "It's just beginning." Across town, Nikki stood outside alone, staring up at the night sky. Everything felt broken. Her marriage, her home, her trust. Claire's words echoed in her mind. "You think you're right, but you're alone." For the first time in a long time, Nikki didn't know what came next. Back at the Abbott house, Jack finally moved. He grabbed his coat with purpose. "Where are you going?" Billy asked. Jack's voice was steady now, focused. "To end this." Billy raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're thinking clearly?" Jack stopped at the door. "No," he admitted, "but I'm done standing still." He opened the door and stepped into the night. Somewhere far from all of them, things were already spiraling. Secrets were tightening. Plans were unfolding. And the damage Victor started was only just beginning to spread. Because in Genoa City, nothing stays buried. And revenge, it never comes alone.